Welcome to the Great American Collectibles Show, seen Wednesdays on the Sports Collectors Daily Facebook page and the Great American Collectibles Facebook page. You can also listen to us on iHeartRadio, Pandora, and Spotify. The Great American Collectibles Show is brought to you by the National Sports Collectors Convention and Sports Collectors Daily. Tonight's headlines are brought to you by Sports Collectors Daily. For all of your hobby news, features, and more, go to sportscollectorsdaily.com. And now your host, Tom Zappola.
All right, my next crew, come on up. We've got
Brian Dwyer from REA. We got Joe Orlando from Heritage Auctions.
And
Mike
Mr. Hefner. Come on
Hefner.
up, you guys. Mike Hefner from Leland. And we're also going to chat right now, as soon as they come on board, the three gentlemen that are taking over this amazing national and are going to be running it starting right after this one. Come on up, guys. Oh, now they're kibitzing. Joe Drelich. It's like old home week. Nice to see you. Grab a seat. You guys can all talk. Brian, just hang one sec. Just grab a seat, you guys. All right, I am really, really pleased. I guess, no, we don't have to take a break. In a couple of minutes, Hef, Joe Orlando, and Brian Dwyer are going to be joining us. Three great guys. But right now, we had Mr. Brogy on earlier. I'd like you guys... you don't have a mic. Why don't you move that mic there?
Oh, okay.
Here you go. Okay. These three gentlemen are the guys that are taking what you see here today into the next level. I think that's fair enough to say, Joe, right?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so why don't you introduce yourself and introduce your partners?
Sure. My name is Joe Drelich. To the left of me is Jimmy Ryan. To the right of me is Brian Copolla. We're currently involved in some of the large East Coast shows you might attend or know about. The New York City White Plains Show, the Hofstra Show, the Philly Show, and CSA shows.
All right, so I'm going to ask you guys, starting with Brian, right?
Yep.
Brian, starting with you, what do you envision? I mean, where it's at right now is crazy good. What do you envision next year and going forward with this unbelievable national? You're going to talk into that.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, this is, we've hit a new level here this weekend. So, I mean, you know, how do you build on it? I mean, you obviously just continue to do what you're doing. Ripping wax and, all this live breaking and streaming and the amount of impressions, the millions and millions and millions of impressions that are out there, just replicating over and over is just, I mean, that's the difference. That's a big piece of all this.
Jimmy, I'm going to ask you now. So, I mean, you don't plan this thing in a weekend. You guys have been working for how long together, just tweaking kind of what's here, but looking at next year's. How long have you guys been working at this?
We've been working on this for almost 18 months now. Just getting set up to run forward for Cleveland for next year. We hope everybody joins us next year out in Cleveland in 2024. But it's been an 18-month project to get us to this point, to prepare us. So we're ready to run.
Joe, you mentioned that next year's Cleveland. The year after is Chicago again, correct? But then the third year, you're having a kind of a contest. Why don't you tell our listeners and viewers about it?
Sure. So basically, the National has grown so large that it needs to be booked at least 3 years out. And so in order to do that, we need larger and larger locations each year. So sort of the way that process works, as to Tom's point, the next 2 years are already decided. Cleveland at the IX Center, which is located right near the airport. The following year, Chicago. And 2026 is now in a stage of voting. So the way that process works, our management team vets out locations all across the United States. We started out with 27 cities and narrowed it down to 3. The way that process works is the criteria that is required is we need buildings that are a minimum of 500,000 square feet. Now, if you do a Google search and you look up convention centers in major cities that are 500,000 square feet, your list gets short really quick. But with having those 27 choices, we did have all areas of the country covered, East Coast, West Coast, center of the country. And so from that process, we look into things like hotels, costs of hotels, safety, security, transportation, airport proximity. And then we narrow that down and we turn that over to the board of directors of the National, and they give a few choices, and then at that point, the dealers here that you meet and walk around and see will vote. They'll be picking their booths and their spaces for the following year and placing a vote on those 3 city choices. And that's how we come up with the location choice for the cities for the National.
You know, I have been begging these gentlemen to think about Fenway Park in Boston. I can't pull it off.
It's just too small.
It's
just too small. Not gonna fit.
It is. Just can't pull it off. You know, you guys are killing me. Joe, I'm going to ask this to the 3 of you. There has been a tremendous change in the National with the inception of technology. I mean, there are companies here that 10 years ago nobody ever heard of. But now, I mean, they've become part of the fabric of what's happening in the National. Is more of that going to happen as time goes on?
Yeah, I think that, you know, first of all, it's dealers and collectors first. But what we've done is expanded the dealer and collector base. You know, it's obvious with the diversity that's here that the demand is here, and it's great to see the community continue to grow in all aspects. I mean, we've spent the last 4 days walking the floor and introducing ourselves to people that we've never met before. To Tom's point, a few short years ago, we knew probably better than 50-60% of the people on the floor, and now we're getting introduced to people constantly all day long. So it's fantastic, and all of these different companies that you see are really to be commended for the wonderful jobs that they've done, elevating themselves, introducing new products, new advances to our hobby and our collections. But ultimately, it is about the collecting and the cards. You know, so we want to also keep that first and foremost while integrating more advancements, you know, more things that people want to see. And I think that has a way of self-vetting itself, you know. Things that are brought into the space maybe that, you know, aren't quite there yet will vet themselves out, and the things that are doing great, I would imagine are going to continue to grow.
One of the things we're going to be doing on the show, and keep this in mind because I know a lot of you folks are watching the show, these 3 gentlemen are going to be appearing on the show over the course of the year many times so that we can keep you guys updated on what the 2024 National is going to look like. Between the 3 of you, I know that you guys can come on, keep you guys abreast as to what's going on, and if there's any new wrinkles, you'll be the first to hear about it from our show. Fair enough?
Fair enough. We want to be transparent and open in the processes and share all new exciting information. So yeah, we're happy to do that, and we thank you all for coming very much, because the reason that we're here is because you all are here, and so we'll continue to try to make the show better and better each year. You know, we're going to be very accessible and open to suggestions, and a lot of that stuff will be unveiled in the next few months where you'll be able to reach out to the National, make suggestions, you know, give us a punch list to work from as well, along with our own ideas. So thank you all.
How about a nice round of applause for Joe, Jimmy, and Brian? These are the gentlemen that are now in charge of this organization. Thank you, guys. Take care. Joe, I'll see you. Thank you. Be good, Jimmy. All right, boys, come on up. Okay, I didn't know that. All right, so now we've got the A team coming on. We had the B team on in the first hour. Trust me, there was definitely. Joe, you can sit here, and Brian sit here. Hef, you can sit right there. I am so proud. These 3 guys. I don't even know how to say it, but they have been a part of the fabric of this National for many, many years. The 3 of them, except for Orlando, no. The 3 of them have all made indelible marks, quite frankly. And I'm not just saying this because these are my friends, and they are. But these guys have made indelible marks in the hobby. I mean, they're three of, I call them the Hall of Famers. Brian Dwyer from REA Auctions, Joe Orlando, former CEO and president of PSA and Collectors Universe, now executive vice president of Heritage Auctions, and Mike Hefner, president, CEO, director of facilities, you name it, for Leland's Auction House. How about a nice round of applause? All right, I'm going to, first thing I'm going to do is I want to talk about your individual auctions, what's going on. Hef, you have one going on right now, and you have to talk right into this. Tell us about your current auction.
How close?
There you go.
Now, look what he did.
Oh, there you go.
How comes I have a knife beside my microphone? Is there a reason?
Good point.
We have
you
an
guys
auction.
want some water? Can you grab a couple of bottles of water? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Hef.
We have an auction ending. I think it's next Saturday.
How you doing?
And it's got some great stuff in it. I don't even know everything that's in there. There's so much stuff in it. But 1,500 lots. It ends next Saturday. We have the catalogs available for free up at the front, and it's just one of so many. You know, trying to count up the auctions that I've done, or Leland's has done in the last several decades, and I can't even count them. I lost track of the catalogs, so they all sort of blend together now, and it's hard for me to pinpoint specific items. You know, people bring stuff up to consign it or to show it to me, and they say, I got this out of your auction, and I forget, because it just, we've handled so much stuff, and you know, it's like this auction going on now. It's just one of many, and the stuff just seems to keep coming out, and you know, it's like every day is a new day and new stuff.
You have a couple of signature pieces in the auction. Is there anything you want to highlight?
As far as we have a really rare Paley rookie card that's going to sell for several $100,000. We have some really neat game used stuff. We have some Pittsburgh Steelers shirts in there, some of which came right from the team. Just there's a little bit. The reason that I think our auction is appealing to a lot of people is that we have something for everybody. You don't have to be out there and have $1 million credit line. You can buy something in our auction for $200. You can buy something in our auction for $500. You can buy something for $100,000. So we have so many different pieces from so many different sports, so many different you know, time periods. Like there's something for everyone, which I think people kind of like.
You know, I have my eye on a piece. My wife is going to shoot me because I promised her, but there's a Campanella contract that I'm keeping my eye on. That's a nice piece.
Oh yeah,
that's
I
a
definitely
really nice
like
piece.
that.
1952 Roy Campanella.
1952, yes.
Contract.
Yes.
I'm kind of into that because of this guy and because of a few others. I've kind of gotten away from the cards, and I'm really, really getting into really good, funky memorabilia. I'm really enjoying it. Really enjoying it.
The memorabilia to me, as you know, has always been so much more fun than the cards. Not to put the cards down, but because the cards are the basis of our industry. If it wouldn't be for the cards, there wouldn't be memorabilia. But the memorabilia is a lot more fun to me than the cards, and it's also something that, you know, it's a lot of these cards are 1 of 1, 1 of 5, but a lot of this memorabilia is also 1 of 1. You know. More so than the cards. It's so rare, and I think people are beginning to catch on to that.
Good. Joe, I mean, I was at forget it. I mean, you guys, some of the stuff you guys have. Tell us about your auction, what's coming down, what you have. Your partner in crime brought the mantle card up here with us, but Heritage has some other amazing things. Why don't you tell us about some of them?
Yeah, so at Heritage, you know, we have auctions every week and every month, but twice a year we do what is called our platinum sale. We do it in February, we do it in August, and this is the auction that for us it kind of has the most cachet around it. So that's what we have on display at the show. A handful of the items that are standouts. Since Derek already showed the mantle, how about the 1958 mantle jersey, pinstripe home jersey that has been photo matched to several games, which is great because on the pinstripes, it allows you to do that much more easily than jerseys that don't have those type of markings. We've got a 1998 photo match Michael Jordan jersey from a playoff run that year, Last Dance. I mean, and as Mike said, it's like there's something for everyone. Those are deep 6- and 7-figure type items, but then we also have items that are, you know, 10,000, 5,000. One of the coolest items I think that is very newsworthy is we have a Shohei Ohtani bat from his first MVP season, because unless Shohei Ohtani falls off the face of the earth this year, I think he's a shoo-in for his second MVP. But from his first MVP in 2021, we have a bat that has been photo matched to 7 home runs, which is really rare because these, in the current day and age, players, they go through bats much more quickly. So to be able to photo match a bat to that many home runs for that long of a stretch, that bat is estimated to go well above $100,000, which is amazing for a current player. So we got a little bit of everything, but the booth, as you said, it's very impressive.
Ryan?
We have an auction going on live now through August 13th. RobertEdwardAuctions.com. We have 3,000 lots, and I think we're most proud of everything, but 2 that are really catching people's eye here at the show. We're at booth 327 in the corporate area. We've got a newly discovered Joe Doyle T206, which I know is near and dear to Tom's heart.
I saw that. Again, she starts yelling at me.
You need it for your set.
Yeah, are you kidding?
Only the 10th one found. This one's the highest graded. And then keeping in the vein of memorabilia and photo matching, we've got a photo matched 1923 Babe Ruth bat that is matched to a game in which he hit a home run. So that is resolution photo matching, guys. Made that match. It's a very significant piece. But keeping with the theme, we have items that are starting at $50 as well. And if I can I touch on the acquisition?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I was going to ask you to. Absolutely.
All right. So 2 weeks ago, we announced the acquisition of Huggins & Scott Auctions. So Huggins & Scott, great legacy brand, been in business for more than 30 years in the Baltimore, D.C. area. They're now going to be a subsidiary company of Robert Edward Auctions. And they have an auction going on now through next Thursday. Very wide selection of cards and memorabilia, autographs. So like these guys said, you don't have to have $1 million budget, but you can find something that's going to fit in with your collection.
I want to touch upon something with the three of you that we touched upon. Again, this is a 2-hour show. The first hour was what we broadcast last week, so this is over a period of 2 weeks. I want to ask you guys the same question that I asked the panel of Mo, Larry, and Curly in the first hour. I think personally, and we've all talked about it, Brian, we've talked about it ad nauseum, for the young collectors out there, it's okay to speculate. It's okay to speculate. It's okay to buy that modern and ultra modern card if you want, roll the dice and try to flip it, and if you make a lot of money, God bless you. On the other hand, you could get burnt pretty bad. Point being is, for the young collectors out there, anybody that's watching or listening on the radio, it's really important to have a very well-balanced portfolio. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is with vintage cards, modern, and if you want to throw some ultra-modern cards in there. I mean, the vintage cards, we've always talked about it, Joe, and have almost like blue chip stocks. You have your Procter & Gamble, you have your GE, you have your IBM. That's the basis. And then if you want to speculate with those other stocks, I want to call them, you're welcome to do that. Hef, your thoughts on that?
Well, it's I think you want to buy, if you're putting together a portfolio, and I hate to even use that word portfolio, because people should buy things because they love them, because they want to enjoy them. If they go up in value, that's just an added bonus. So, as far as portfolio, I look at it like, I don't know much about the modern, but I know enough. We had a boom on the modern stuff. A lot of new money came in, bought the modern stuff. Now the modern stuff shot up astronomically, and now the modern stuff has come down at almost the same rate. A lot of that new blood that came into the hobby is disenchanted with the modern, but it also exposed all those people to the vintage stuff. So I feel like a lot of the guys that are stopped buying the modern stuff now are transferring over to the vintage. But I always look at the names that roll off the tip of your tongue. It's the Babe Ruth. Even if it's a 33 Gaudy in poor condition, it was worth $500 10 years ago. Now it's worth $5,000. So even if you don't, you can't afford hundreds of thousands for a PSA 8 for a Cobb, Ruth, Gehrig, Mantle, whatever it might be. I think that buying the names and the really prominent players' cards and memorabilia is important. There's something out there for every person. But as far as you were saying, Tom, about spreading things out, that's where the memorabilia also comes into play, because I think people can have fun with memorabilia and they can add that to their so-called portfolios also. And now that they're grading companies, PSA grading bats, numerous companies, resolution matching jerseys, people can have the comfort level that they need to have to spend the money on game used equipment. So it's just like cards, and it's easier for people to understand. So,
Brian, I was going to say,
balance.
Brian, you've mentioned in the past, you've said it on the show, Babe Ruth's not coming back. Ty Cobb is not coming back. Those guys are dead. Those cards are finite cards. But then, you've got the Fernando Tatis Purple Prism with the gravy stain on it, 1 of 1, the manufactured rarity. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I always advocate that people collect what they like. Who am I to say that modern's not where you should be putting your money? But when it comes to modern, I tell people, Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle, their cards, we can see what they did during war. We can see what they did during financial turmoil. We can see what they did during political unrest or stuff that's going on in the U.S., stuff that's going on abroad. You have to go in a little bit eyes wide open with modern, and you have to know that it doesn't have that extensive track record like vintage. But, like Mike said, the guys' names should roll off your tongue. And right now, Ohtani and Trout and those guys, those are the names that everybody's banking on being very significant in the future. So collect what you like.
No, I agree. Joe?
Yeah, first I'm going to echo everything Brian and Mike said, because they said it very well. I think, I'm going to date myself here. So speculating, there's nothing wrong with it, but it was so different. So when I was growing up and collecting in the 1980s, I could do things like buy 800 Mark McGwire rookies for a nickel. You can't do that anymore, because now, before these guys ever step foot on a court or foot on a field, when they're drafted and they have cards made of them, they're worth $10,000, $50,000, $100,000. So it's really about risk level. The risks are much greater now than compared to in the 80s and the 90s, where you could do it and have a little fun, but you weren't putting yourself at risk the way it is now. Now, back in those days, some guys would buy 1,000 rookies of a certain player. Sometimes they were Cal Ripken Jr. Sometimes they turned out to be Greg Jeffries. No offense to Greg Jeffries fans, but it was at a much, much lower level in terms of the financial aspect of it.
So basically, then, what I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what you guys are saying is, there's nothing wrong with buying modern cards or ultra modern cards, but just spend wisely, I guess. Spend wisely.
Yeah, and the way that I view modern sometimes is that it's a gateway for people. 2003, I came to my first national. I've been to 18 of them since. I collected very different things in 2003, but now I'm Ruth and Cobb and Wagner and Gehrig and Mantle and guys like that. So, however you come into the hobby, I'm all for it, and maybe your tastes change and maybe they don't.
We are chatting with Mike Hefner from Leland's, Joe Orlando from Heritage, and Brian Dwyer from REA Auctions. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Since 1996, Brian Drent and the staff at Denver's Mile High Card Company have led the charge in the collectibles hobby. Mile High is a full-service dealer specializing in buying and selling cards, and offers a competitive consignment program for all collectors. Whether it be their computerized want list service, appraisals, or auction services, Mile High has it all. If you've been searching for a company with a selection of high-grade vintage 1888 to 1970 baseball cards and memorabilia that shares your passion, aim high, Mile High. Go to milehighcardco.com or call 303-840-2784 for more information.
Hi, everyone. This is Rico Petrocelli. JustCollect.com, a leader in the vintage sports card industry, is giving free appraisals on your vintage cards. They'll evaluate your collection for free and let you know the value of it at no cost and no obligation. If you're ready to sell, JustCollect.com will offer you industry-leading prices to buy your card collection. To begin your free baseball card appraisal, visit JustCollect.com or call them at 732-828-2261. That's JustCollect.com for your free vintage card appraisals and top buy prices for your cards. Check out JustCollect.com today.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
How would you like to own the bat that was used by your favorite player when he hit that towering home run or game-winning base hit? Now look no further than JT Sports, specializing in the sale and authentication of professional game-used bats. As the official authenticators of professional model game-used bats for PSA DNA, JT Sports will guarantee the authenticity of any bat purchased from them. JT Sports also buys and sells game-worn uniforms, gloves, and baseball equipment. The unique quality of the collectible is what JT Sports is all about. Give them a call at 609-487-8003 or check them out at GameUseBats.com.
With record-breaking sales from everything from the white border T206 Honus Wagner for $3.12 million to some great items that support the Jackie Robinson Foundation, Golden Auctions has set the highest standards for the finest in sports cards, autographs, and game-used memorabilia. We're always accepting consignments of high-end premium sports treasures or entire collections. Please register for our next auction and bid now at goldenauctions.com. That's golden with an I. We at Golden Auctions are committed to providing unsurpassed customer service for the discriminating collector. That's exactly why we're the leader in the industry. Visit goldenauctions.com or call 856-767-8550. Remember, Golden Auctions. We don't just break records, we shatter them.
We're back. It's called technology. Our crack staff, they interject the commercials later. All right, so let's get back. I want to ask your opinion. Listen, Joe, I mean, you were president of PSA for a long time. Third-party grading now seems to be changing a little bit. There are more companies, but I think, and I'm going to ask you this first, because I think you once said to me, there's always been a lot of companies popping up and then disappearing. What is your whole take on third-party grading now? Is it different than when you were president of PSA? And do you see it changing going forward?
Oh boy! Thank you for putting me on the spot, Tom.
Loaded question. I figured, what the hell, right?
So again, for the Brian and Mike remember this. So we've seen this movie before. So in the 1998 to 2001 time period, you had the .com boom, the emergence of platforms such as eBay, the internet. You had McGuire and Sosa, home run chase. You had Tiger Woods emerging and having his first Upper Deck card. That was the last time we saw a pretty big surge in the market. And as a result of that, there were probably 36 grading services that popped up overnight at that time.
Wow.
So all I'll say is this, because we'll be here all week, if you really want me to answer this question, is that, look, it's about brand. I mean, there's a lot of technology coming into the industry, a lot of change, a lot of growth, but at the end of the day, it's what do collectors want to build their collections around? What's the brand that they want to associate with? So it is a pretty big mountain to climb for some of the newer companies, and there's some very impressive booths here, some of the newer companies coming in. But it's very buyer, very collector driven. And as a collector myself, like Brian and Mike, we love uniformity. So if a collector is building their collection around a particular brand, that's a pretty big barrier to entry for newer companies. It doesn't mean that things don't change over time, but that would be the one thing that I would sort of leave the audience with, is that it's about brand recognition, because when you buy something and you go to trade it or resell it, at some point you want to make sure that you have the sort of widest market, the largest market available to you, so you have the most demand for that item. So a lot of change going on, but I guess I'll leave it.
No, that's
I'll leave
good.
it there.
That's very good. Hef, what are you seeing? I mean, how important is third-party grading today in the market?
I think I was walking around. I didn't get a whole lot of chance to walk around here, but I was just thinking about the changes that occurred at the National. I've been doing them since the 80s, I guess. I am really old, like you, Tom.
Not as old as I am.
But I was just thinking about the changes, and the third-party grading and authentication have really, they've cleaned up the hobby a lot, because I used to walk around the National during the 90s, and I would see all sorts of cards that were messed with and autographs that were fake, and you name it. There was a lot of shenanigans going on. And you know what? The third-party grading and authentication, to me, the biggest impact that they made on the hobby was cleaning it up. I didn't like it at first. I was a naysayer. I liked the old way of doing things. You learn the business, you learn from experience, you buy and sell, you make mistakes. But I was wrong, and this thing would probably be, if it wouldn't be for the third-party grading and authentication, this show right now, we probably have about half the people and half the dealers here. The third-party grading and authentication have really made a big difference, and the companies that are coming in and going out, those are the ones that should come in and go out. The guys that are sticking around are the guys who are making the least mistakes and who are adding the most value to the product.
Good points. Brian?
I could be Hef if you want me to. Look, I think authentication, third-party grading, all of that is significant to our industry. It makes us all speak the same language, And for the three of us who really, our businesses are so heavily reliant on selling over the internet, we can confidently sell, or one of our clients can confidently buy something that's a PSA 10 or an SGC 10 or Mears or JSA or Beckett, whatever the case may be. We all speak that same language. So, nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes, but certainly having that standard reduces the mistakes. And when Hef said disenchantment, you want to cut down on disenchantment as much as possible.
We are chatting with Brian Dwyer from REA Auctions, Joe Orlando from Heritage, and Mike Hefner from Leland's. I want to ask you guys, let's talk about, I always call it the 80-20 rule, maybe the 90-10 rule. 90% of the collectors in this building cannot afford a $500,000 card. They're budget collectors. They can spend a few $100, a few $1,000, but that Honus Wagner card or that PSA 9 mantle is not for everyone. In your opinion, let's talk about what you guys think. I don't care I don't want to talk about overrated cards. Let's talk about underrated cards, if we can, for a moment. I'm going to throw out a few. for a collector, an Al Kaline, using Al Kaline as an example, a PSA 4, 5, or 6 Al Kaline, or George Brett, or Robin Yount, are those cards still kind of dead in the water? Or, you know, the first T206 cards, Joe, that I bought, I paid $11 for them. You know, I was talking about a Harry Putty card that I spent $11 on, and it's a $175, $180 card now, $200 card. So if a collector invests $100, $200 in a low-grade Al Kaline and just holds on to it, is that a good investment over long term? Could be 10 years, whatever.
A lot to unpack there. So I would echo what Mike said earlier, which is, look, if we're focusing on kind of the financial aspect of it, if we're talking about that, long term, the names, the Mount Rushmore names, the icons, the legends, those are the places that, look, if we're talking strictly financially, you know, that's where you want to.
So you're talking the Ruths, the Cobbs, the Garricks.
Right. I mean, because Al Kaline, as great as he is, and he's Hall of Famer and one of the all-time great, he's never going to be that guy. That said, I guess the way I would answer your question is, I've always been a believer, and this was advice given to me as a very young man: buy the best quality you can afford. I know people want to focus on the financial aspect of that, because those are the types of items that tend to perform best over time, but it's more about personal satisfaction. As a collector, when you buy the best that you can afford, those are the items that you can look at every day, and you'll never look for an upgrade. Those are the ones that are most satisfying as a collector. And I know both Mike and Brian can understand this point as fellow collectors. Sometimes you'll buy something and maybe it's a placeholder. At some point you're going to have to upgrade it. But when you buy the best quality you can afford, those are the items you look at every day. You're totally satisfied with, and you can move on to something else. So there's some different layers to your question, but I don't think you can turn an Al Kaline or a Tony Perez into a Lou Gehrig or a Willie Mays. They're just it sort of is what it is.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Hef?
Yeah, that Joe pretty much summed it up there. You can't turn the mediocre Hall of Famers into the cornerstone Hall of Famers. And but on the other hand, if you're a Tiger collector, I mean, put together a run of Al Kaline cards. I mean, that's fun. That's something cool to do. And if you can afford 2s, then buy 2s. If you can afford 5s, buy 5s. Do what Joe said. Buy within your means, and always. If it brings you joy and you can afford it, do it. As far as underrated stuff, I mean, I'll use this just to plug my passion here, Tom. Wrestling cards. I love wrestling. And I think wrestling cards are very underrated. They've been picking up in value. But
by the way, there's a guy that's running a Coke stand in that corner. He's probably about 25 years old. Spitting image of Bruno Sammartino. Spitting image.
It may be him reincarnated.
And I told him that. I said, you're Bruno. He says, you know how many people tell me that. But go ahead.
Wow.
I digress.
So yeah, I love wrestling. I love the wrestling cards, and it's something that, it's a sport that's televised. It's on almost every night of the week. So that's my passion and joy, and that's something. Maybe it's just because I like it a lot that I think that it's going to go up in value, but it doesn't matter if it goes up in value. If you enjoy wrestling, if you enjoy soccer, and if you enjoy football, collect it.
You know who's a neighbor of ours? John Cena.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he lives. Yeah. We're on the water.
Could you go visit him for me?
You know what he did? He just built a beautiful home, and he's never there, so his folks kind of take care of it for him.
Well, if he has a yard sale, let me know.
I will. Brian, what are your thoughts?
First of all, I'm surprised you could see John Cena, but Yeah, I mean, so I think that, kind of piggybacking off Hef, I think that some of the non-baseball, like I think hockey has a lot of room to run. I think there's some very significant hockey cards that might have a future. And then, as far as second-tier Hall of Famers, I think the only exception I might say is when it comes to memorabilia. I still think that if you have a guy like Al Kaline, you got a really high-quality bat or you got a really high-quality jersey, that could be a very good long-term investment. And again, purely financial, ultimately collect what you like. But, they're not making a ton of them, and now we're going to get hit, so... they're throwing stuff from the other side.
Oh, they're throwing all sorts of stuff.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, so...
Is that what goes on over here?
Yeah, you can't turn Al Kaline into Babe Ruth, but still not a bad guy to keep your eye on.
There's another topic, and we talked about it on the last show, that I want to run by you guys. With the uptick in what's happened in this industry, I mean, just tremendous growth. There's also been a tremendous uptick in crime. Card shops getting broken into on a fairly regular basis. Rich Miller, the headline that we read every week is about a new break-in at whether it be a card shop, a little mom-and-pop shop, or a big company. Crime seems to have spiked tremendously in the last year and a half. I mean, I just read some folks stole the Yogi Berra's rings and melted them down, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And I mean, how can it be policed, Joe? I mean, you guys have some pretty powerful, let's call them guards at your place. But I mean, I'm talking about the mom and what can be done?
This would be, I guess, my angle as you were articulating the question. This is where my mind goes. Look, where there's money, there's crime, right? In everything. And the levels have gone up so much in the past 2 or 3 years that it becomes an enticing target. This industry becomes a target for that kind of thing. This is what I would say. I think most collectors in this room, maybe not, but would be stunned about how many collectors don't insure their collections. And it's kind of frightening when you talk to people that have 6-figure and 7-figure collections and they don't have it either insured or at least or fully insured. I would highly recommend getting your collections fully insured, because I have heard of friends of mine who have had thefts, that sort of thing.
Sure.
And it's that's a real problem, because when it happens, you never think it's going to happen to you, but when it does, you don't want to be, making your claim, and again, with either, underinsuring it dramatically, or you have nothing at all. You need to, part of collecting, and let me just finish with this, you have to manage your collection. Part of it is protecting it, the way you store it, the way you display it, the way you insure it. It's not just about buying the stuff, so that would be my piece of advice, is to fully insure your material.
I think that's a great piece of advice for, again, our viewers and listeners out there and our audience. It's really important that you have your collection insured. As a matter of fact, a little later on, Tom Ruggie from Family Wealth is going to be joining us to talk about your investment portfolio and, making plans if you ever want to liquidate it. Hef, what are your thoughts on all of this about the whole crime thing? I mean, it does seem to have been an uptick. Is there anything that can be done to police it?
Well, I think we've always had, as in any industry, whether it's stockbrokers or, whatever it might be, there's always an amount of criminality that goes on within the field. So, I mean, protecting your collection, if we're talking about that, I can speak firsthand because my home was burglarized about 3 or 4 months ago, and I lost some of my collection. And it's the worst feeling in the world, believe me. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody, but I learned from it. If you have a high dollar value collection or you have stuff that you really cherish, make sure you lock it up. I know it's hard not to show friends and not to show your collection off, but try not to make it too blatant of what you have or where you have it. I hate safety deposit boxes because if you're putting your stuff in a safety deposit box, why even have it if you have to go to the bank and look at it? But I would certainly recommend having a safe that's not movable or bolted into the floor. And those of you that collect cards, it's pretty easy to get thousands of cards into a safe, and the safe will run you $2,000 to $3,000 for a really, really strong, heavy-duty one. And just like Joe said, over 90% of these thefts that take place at either a show or someone's home, the stuff is gone. You'll never see it again. So sometimes it's not even about the money; it's about losing a piece of your heart, losing a piece of your collection, losing something that means a lot to you. So I would just say, not for everybody to be so paranoid, but just make sure you protect yourselves and guard your stuff the best you can without being paranoid and without having to worry about your stuff, leaving it where you can enjoy it.
Brian, it's interesting because we just mentioned Tom Ruggie. Tom, grab a mic. We're talking about insuring your collection. We're talking about what people can do with their collection going down. Brian, I want to get your thoughts first.
Yeah, so I mean, the hobby obviously over the last couple of years has benefited from a tremendous amount of exposure and media coverage, and that's helped bring in this new, great, exciting element of collectors. But it's also raised the profile for the criminal element. And, like Joe was alluding to, we all have security guards at our booth. We all have safes at our offices. We all have pretty high-tech theft deterrent systems. But oftentimes, unfortunately, my dad was a state trooper. He said a majority of crime is crime of opportunity. And so if you just take the precautions and God forbid something happens, or God forbid, you let your guard down, or one of your mechanisms is circumvented, have it insured, have it documented. And it's a terrible feeling, but at least there's some consolation because you've prepared for it.
We were talking to Steve Lane. You know Steve. Do you know Steve Lane? No. Steve has a small exhibit at the Heritage Auction, Mickey Mantle guy. So, Steve was on the show in the first hour, and he had 8 items that he FedExed down to Heritage to be displayed that he was going to put on auction. And out of the 8, 4 of them, I believe, were stolen from a FedEx employee. Opened up the box. Now they're investigating it. About 50. We talked about it. He said you can talk about it. $55,000 to $60,000 worth of theft. So it's happening all over the place. So it's really, really important. Number one, as Joe mentioned, you got to get your collection insured. That's at the top of the list. But then once you have your collection insured, what do you do with it? Tom, why don't you tell us, Tom Ruggie, tell us about the name of your company and some of the things that you do.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. So
you have to talk a little loud. It's a little noisy.
All right. Yeah, it's loud. My name's Tom Ruggie. I actually run a wealth management company and family office. But over the last year or so, what I've really started focusing my business on is people with collectibles, because I've been collecting since I was 7 years old, and it's a huge passion of mine. So what I'm really working with high-end collectors to do is to set up a process where they've taken care of everything that they ought to take care of with their collection. So as Joe mentioned, not just insuring the collection, but what's your security. And then, an example very personally close to me is the succession planning of your collection, because in my personal situation, I have 2 children and a wife, none of who could care less about the wonderful collection I've built up. So it's important to document what you have, but also to figure out if, God forbid, something were to happen to you at an early age, or if something happened to you down the road, what is the best methodology of potentially liquidating your collection. And of course, one of the things could be with auction houses such as Heritage and REA sitting here. Those are great examples of what would actually happen to my collection if I didn't make it home from this trip.
God forbid.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay. I'm sorry, we're talking giveaways. We're going to be giving away shortly. This is an interesting book. It's called 100 Greatest Baseball Autographs. Ellen and I wrote this several years ago with John Mallory. And actually, this book won the Ben Franklin Award. We're going to give one of these away. We have a trivia question. And then we also wrote another book that won the silver medal. It's called Baseball and Bubblegum. It's about the 1952 Topps collection. And our partner here, Mr. Joseph Orlando, wrote this book with us. This is going to be the first one we're going to give away because this goes hand in hand with this gentleman's collection. Tom, why don't you tell our audience, Tom's got a collection of 1952 Topps cards, but it's not just any collection. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, my 52 set is the number one set on the registry. I have all the cards signed in the set with the exception of 10, and I actually have located 3 of the 10 that I need and am currently trying to work a deal out on that. I may have to take out a mortgage on my house, but it'll get me within 7 of having the complete set. But not only that, I've continuously upgraded the set. So on the PSA registry, my set has 76% of either the highest graded or tied for highest graded cards. So it's a work in progress. And again, talking about God forbid dying too early, my hope is to complete this by the day I die.
Oh, by the way, in a few minutes, Al Crisifulli from Love of the Game Auctions is supposed to be joining us. I asked Al to join us because you guys know Love of the Game. He's kind of like a tweener, and there's a little something for everyone. You've got three powerhouse auction houses, and then you've got some smaller auction houses, and they all have a little niche, and they're all good for the hobby. So I asked Al to join us. All right, so I'm going to give this away right now. This is signed, by the way. You signed this, you know that? This was a couple that we had left over. Right. So we're going to give a copy of this. This is Baseball and Bubblegum, the 1952 Topps collection. Actually, it's a very easy question, so you have to raise your hand fast. First person that raises his hand, no arguments, gets it. Signed by myself, Ellen, and Joe Orlando. You have to answer the question first. All right, here's the question. Real quickly. Who's the number one card in the Topps 52 set? Right there. Wrong. Right there. Andy Pafko, you win, sir. Andy Pafko. And actually, that card is a fairly valuable card, isn't it, Joe? Because of, the reason being is because it being number one, there's not many that are in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, this goes to the heart of collecting. So, as Tom was referring to, building sets. So, to a collector who's just collecting Ruth and Mantle and Mays and Clemente, it may not appeal. But for someone who wants a complete 1952 Topps set, the number one card, Andy Pafko, because it was first card in the series, it had to deal with a lot of handling and damage over the years. There aren't too many that are in ultra high grade. So when those come up, available on the market, they tend to sell for a tremendous amount of money.
Interesting.
Pristine Auction is a family-owned and operated online auction specializing in autographed memorabilia, sports cards, coins, art, and collectibles. Since their founding in 2010, they've grown to 2 facilities in Phoenix, Arizona, totaling over 60,000 square feet. Jared Cavalier and an incredible staff of over 150 team members serve a very large customer base and enjoy every minute of it. By working with leading authentication companies, Pristine ensures all items are 100% authentic. In addition, third-party authenticators regularly travel to Pristine Auction to provide authentication services on site. Pristine Auction strives to operate its business in a way that's honoring to God, their families, and their customers. With a strong focus on speed, quality, and premier customer service, their mission is to be the leading online auction for every level of collector and fan. Pristine also works for Hope Sports and Identity Hoops International, traveling to Mexico to build houses for the less fortunate. Pristine Auction offers several online auction formats with thousands of auctions ending each day. For more information, go to pristineauction.com. That's Pristine Auction, the best in the business.
If you're a discerning collector interested in owning the most important pieces in the hobby, look no further than Leland's Auctions. The original sports auction and appraisal house, Leland's was established in 1985 by legendary Pioneer founder Joshua Leland Evans. And today, President Mike Hefner carries on their tradition. From the Tom Brady card and memorabilia collection to the famed Boston Garden auction to high-end card auctions from every major sport, Leland's has always maintained the highest standards. Go to Lelands.com and get your bid in. That's Leland's, the hobby's leading sports auction house for 4 decades.
It's often been said that championships are won on the practice field, and world records come only to those willing to work harder than everybody else. Heritage Auctions is the world's largest collectibles auctioneer because we believe that becoming the best is only an invitation to the challenge of remaining the best. This requires the skills of the hobby's top experts, capable of identifying and maximizing value for our consigners. It requires the most visited website in the industry, courting a global audience of collectors over 1.5 million strong. It requires a dedicated press department that expands our global reach far beyond the entrenched hobby marketplace. It's hard work, but a simple premise. Present the finest collectibles to the largest population of potential buyers, and world records will come. We invite all listeners to put the unmatched power of Heritage Auctions to work for you. Auction evaluations are always free, and our commission-based fee structure ensures that our interests are always aligned. The highest possible price for your collectibles. There will always be new world records to chase, so let's chase them together. Visit our website at ha.com and request your no-obligation review today.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
Hey, I'm Mike Petroselli. If your company is looking for the best in marketing and promotional items, you'll hit a home run with Petroselli Marketing. With over 8,000 suppliers and 650,000 imprint-ready items, we can get your company the visibility it needs to get your maximum exposure. Whether it be office promotions, wearables, automotive, sports items, and everything in between, Petroselli Marketing can do it all. Our design staff will even work with you from concept to delivery and customize your products. At Petroselli Marketing Group, we will get your brand in front of your audience. Contact us at info@petrosellimkt.com or call us at 603-880-3202. That's Petroselli Marketing, where no dream is impossible.
I want to ask you guys a question. The whole Shohei Ohtani, it's just exploded. Everything about this guy has exploded as far as him being as great as he is. He hasn't been around that long. He's been around, I think he's been a pro for about 7 or 8 years total. Got probably 175 home runs lifetime. People are comparing him to Babe Ruth. I want your thoughts on that. Hefner first.
I can't comment because I never saw Babe Ruth play. So, I mean, Babe Ruth, comparing him to Babe Ruth, I mean, the guy is superhuman, obviously. There's something about him that, you know, he's a one in a gazillion player and human being. But I don't know if he has, you know, comparing him to Babe Ruth, maybe the stats and that kind of stuff. But Babe Ruth was mystical, and this guy doesn't seem to be that character because I don't know. I don't know him personally, of course. But Babe Ruth appealed to everyone, you know, women, children, old men. And he had, you know, the hot dog incident and his carousing and all the, you know, Babe Ruth's statistics and accomplishments in baseball were not the only thing that made him legendary. The things he did off the field, the way he grew up, and all that stuff had a lot to do with his legend. And I don't know if Ohtani is ever going to reach the level of Babe Ruth. I don't think there'll ever be another Babe Ruth. Maybe statistically he'll get there in today's day and age with the injuries and everything else that's going on. We'll see, but he's never going to be Babe Ruth. And I kind of snicker when I hear people say that because he's got one facet, you know, one element of Babe Ruth, but he's never going to have the other three or four that made Babe Ruth.
Very, very well said. Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible take. I mean, I think I imagine that when Babe Ruth was playing, he captivated audiences. I mean, Shohei Ohtani is an electric player right now. I think the thing that Ohtani has that Ruth didn't is that he's global, you know, and I think that's exciting. It's expanding the game. It's expanding the hobby. Statistically, he may get there. But yeah, Ruth, larger than life guy.
Joe?
You know, it's a great topic. I agree with Mike when he led off. It's really unfair to compare players from other generations. I know we all love to do it, including me. You can't help it, but It just isn't fair because there's so many, you know, pros and cons and, you know, advantages, disadvantages. But I'm going to steal from a Bob Costas take. I heard Bob Costas on a podcast a few weeks ago, and I thought he brought up a really good point. Look, with Ruth, there was no DH, right? So once the Yankees said, look, you're going to hit full time, you're not pitching anymore, the fans never got to see him do it simultaneously for the rest of his career.
Good point.
So what's great is, like, again, going back to what Mike said about just the performance angle of it, they're both separate. They're both unique. With Ohtani, we get to see him do both at the same time. We didn't get to see that for much of Ruth's career. Early on, a little bit, but once they saw what he could do with the bat, it was like, look, even though you're on your way to the Hall of Fame as a left-handed pitcher, you have to hit because there's no DH at the time. So Ruth didn't have that advantage that Ohtani has today. So I think they're both going to be treated separately. The one point I'd like to make about Ohtani, I think is interesting, and I think it separates him from everybody else that's playing today. I wonder if fans and collectors, I don't think that we're going to require that he does it for as long as a guy like Mike Trout, because what he's doing is so unique. So maybe Ohtani only needs, who knows, 7, 8, 9 years of this kind of thing to eventually be a candidate for the Hall of Fame, because we've never seen it before. It's not that Ruth didn't have the ability to do it. Right. He didn't have the opportunity to do it.
Good point. So, is this your first national?
No, this is my second national.
Second?
Yes.
I want to get your opinions, all four of you, on, I mean, especially you three guys. I mean, the technology here is a little overwhelming for some people. I mean, you see companies here that they came out of nowhere. And, I mean, they're high-tech companies. Mike, from day one when you started to some of the high-tech stuff that's here today, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, it's like almost like going into the space age. What are your thoughts on that?
It blows my mind because we didn't even have, you know, back in the 80s and, you know, even 70s. I don't want to date myself that bad, but we didn't have cell phones. I mean, can you believe that? Like, you know, no one could look up prices. We didn't have Price Realized. when we used to do auctions, we used to have boards hanging in the office, and we used to write the bids on the boards to keep track of the bids. Now, it just boggles my mind, and it actually makes me a little bit sad, because I'd like to go back to the days when there weren't the cell phones and we couldn't look everything up on the computer and we didn't have prices realized. So to me, it's overwhelming. I can't keep up with it, and I don't understand some of it. I hate to admit it, but I don't even understand some of it.
That's great points. Nor do I. Brian, you're a little younger, but I mean, you've seen it. I mean, just look at the break pavilion. Just what's going on here. What are your thoughts from when you started?
Yeah, I mean, I am a little younger, and even I don't understand all of it. But, when I was at my first national, you could grade something on site, and the pop report wouldn't update for weeks. So you'd come here, you'd grade stuff on site, you'd jam the pop report, you wouldn't find out what happened until they released the pop report the next month. So, yeah, there's been tremendous innovation. We've innovated in our business. Every one of us here has been part of something innovative, and that's exciting. And obviously, whatever brings people in is exciting, and maybe you come in for a short burst, maybe you stay for a long time, but however you get here is fine by me.
Tom?
Well, it's definitely sensory overload being here, but it's a fantastic show. I have never bought a box of cards to break in my entire life, but I actually caught the craze, and I've got a little bag here with 3 boxes that I brought that I'll see if I get lucky, but it's pure fun for me.
I mean, it's a whole new dynamic, Joe, right? As far as the case breaks, and obviously you've seen some changes here. What are your thoughts about all this technology?
Yeah, I think to me the biggest difference when you go, as Mike was referring to, back in the 80s, 90s, and you fast forward to today, it's access to information and access to the product itself. Brian, when we were talking about Ohtani, he's like, oh yeah, he's a global star. Well, so is the entire industry now. When I was a teenager, I was pretty much limited to the local baseball card shop. If I wanted to get really crazy and risk doing mail order, I could do that back in the 1980s, and you didn't know what you were going to get in the mail, but you were that limited. Now, I mean, collectors have any type of information they need. Brian mentioned pop reports, pricing, whatever it is, but access to the product you can buy anywhere, all over the world. So it's never been a better time to be a collector, but that's the biggest difference to me in the last 30, 40 years are those two things: access to information and access to the stuff that we love to buy.
What about we have a few minutes left. What about non-sports items? I mean, the whole Pokemon phenomena. I don't understand it. I'm sure you're an expert at it.
I love Pokemon.
As much as wrestling.
What is Pokemon? Is that the bear? I don't know. No, I don't understand it, but obviously it's working. Look out here. How many people do we have that came for that stuff? And hopefully they also, some of them become sports fans and sports collectors. I like the crossover. Just because I don't understand it doesn't mean that it's not good. And, I see how it's appealing to kids. And I think I know adults are collecting much of it, but I think it's just as important that we get kids out. And if that's what they understand, that's what they want to start with, that's great. Because I'll tell you, I look out there and I see more kids now than I have in the past 10 years. At the national convention. So
unbelievable.
These guys must be doing something right.
Brian?
Yeah, I mean, we have been a vintage baseball auction house for 30 years, but even in the last year or two, we've started selling Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And other TCG. So, the market's changing, the access to the product, the globalization, it's all coming together. And, I don't understand it. I missed the Pokemon growing up, but I love that people love it, and I love that they're passionate about it. And what I was collecting when I was 13 is totally different than what I'm collecting now. But I got into the hobby, I felt the energy, I felt the passion, and I stayed, and I just changed.
All right, we've got about 3 minutes left. Last T-shirt for that gentleman right there.
That's a great catch.
Nice catch, good hand. All right, our last giveaway. And this is a copy of the 100 Greatest Baseball Autographs. This is signed by just Ellen and I. We won't get into that. But here's a trivia question. You answer it, you own it. First one that raises their hand. This book was this was kind of an effort by a lot of people, and this is the 100 Greatest Baseball Autographs. Number one in this book, unequivocally, is Babe Ruth, the most sought-after autograph of all the autographs. In this book, who's number two? Wrong. 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 Come on. Who is number two? Wrong. 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 Who is the number two most sought after autograph? Who? No. No one isn't. Excuse me, you were the expert.
That was a long time ago. I don't remember what.
According to this, come on, who is number two? Who? No, Trout. I'm going to have to give a hint. Going to have to give a hint.
Jackie Robinson?
No. You guys come on. Number two. And that's fair. That's legit. All right, I'll give you a hint. Should I give him a hint? We got about 35 seconds left. All right. Should I give him a hint? All right, hit. Run. Run. All right. Who?
Wasn't he closer to that?
Who did you say?
Cy Young.
You're close, but no cigar. Nope. All right.
Al Crisifulli.
Say pre-30.
All right. The answer, I'll give you a hint. This gentleman died at an early age. He was a kind of a hero in World War I. World War I, died from getting gassed later on in life. Mustard gas. Come on, you're killing me here. You guys are killing me. How about you, sir? Would you know? All right, he's a right-handed pitcher. He wrote a book called Pitching.
I got it.
Who did?
Right there.
Christy Matheson. Here you go.
Yeah. Wow.
That was like
they were going to be easy ones.
That was like getting a root canal. We're just about out of time, but I'd like you to come up here real quick, sir. Mr. Fashionably Late. We've got a few minutes. You have to come around this way. You know Al, right?
You have an extra microphone? Or?
No, he can. Joe, can you just use this for one second? Don't even move. No, don't. You can just sit down. We wanted to invite.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's quite all right. Here, sip in. We've got 5 minutes. Get in here. We'll get an extra 5 minutes. I wanted to invite Al Crisifulli from Love of the Game Auctions because these three gentlemen represent the giant auction houses. They're the biggest in the business. A couple of others, Sotheby's, Memory Lane. Al is I call him a tweener. You're really a tweener.
Sure.
You're not a mom and pop auction house. You can hold this in your hand. Not a mom and pop auction house, but you have a great niche. Tell us a little bit about Love of the Game Auctions and how big you are, how many people you have, but then we'll talk about some of your items.
Sure. It's like 1,000 degrees here.
I know it is.
So Love of the Game has been around for 11 years. We're in our 11th year. We tend to focus on the kind of stuff that you don't see every day. Emphasis on pre-war baseball, really, but a little bit of everything, all sports, but mostly stuff that has a story to it, things you don't often encounter in the hobby. It's a nice little niche.
The thing that I wanted you folks to know about Al's auction house is that you don't have to break the bank. He's got some really high-end stuff, but if you have a budget and you can stick to that budget, You'll do very, very, very well with Love of the Game Auctions. What's your website, Al?
It's loveofthegameauctions.com.
I want to thank everybody that was here today. Mike Hefner from Leland's Auctions, Joe Orlando from Heritage Auctions, Brian Dwyer from REA Auctions, Tom Ruggie. I love the name. It rolls off. Tom, is it Family Office? What is it?
It's Destiny Family Office.
Destiny Family Office, and our good friend Al Crisifulli from Love of the Game Auctions. Don't forget, we'd love you guys to watch the show. We're on every Wednesday night on the Great American Collectables Facebook page, Sports Collectors Daily Facebook page. We have another major announcement coming after the National. We're going to be on another major platform. You can watch us on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Pandora, all that stuff. And we're on the Valley 980, WCAP up in the Boston area. We'd love you to follow us. We'd love you to like us. I co-host a show with my two dear friends, Red Sox Hall of Famer Rico Petrocelli and Boston sports personality John Mallory. With that being said, guys, thank you so much. Love you guys. Love our audience. Happy collecting.